Good morning and welcome to another episode of Coffee and Tea with AARP, a biweekly conversation about policies and programs that are of interest to older adults in Connecticut. My name is Doroghazi and I am one of the policy and outreach directors at AARP Connecticut. Today we are going to try something a little bit different, and instead of doing an interview with an external partner like we usually do, we're going to have a conversation with some of our great AARP Connecticut volunteers about a really exciting program that we run right here out of AARP Connecticut called the Livable Communities Grant Program. But before we jump into that, I'm going to do some quick introductions. So with me today, we have Tia Murphy, our volunteer state president from Bethel. Hey, Tia. We also have Pat Lang from Newington and Barbara Munck from North Haven.
There.
Hello, hello. Thank you all so much for being here today. So before we talk about the details of the AARP Connecticut Livable Communities Grant, let's just go over some of the basics. So to back all the way up, what is a livable community? What are we talking about when we say livable community?
Well, you know, a livable community is a great place to live for people of all ages, all abilities, all income levels. It really, it's very inclusive. It's meant for everyone. But what it really is talking about is offering choices about where you live, how you get around, how you remain active and engaged or become active and engaged in your community. So really, it's just a whole series of opportunities and services for all residents of all ages.
Great. So why does AARP care about this? You know, are there particular challenges or barriers that make some communities less livable or less enjoyable for older adults?
Well, Connecticut, as well as the rest of the country, is rapidly aging, as we know. By 2034, there are going to be more adults over the age of 65 than children under the age of 18. And if older adults can't find good housing, accessible transportation, or a means to be socially active, we're going to have a huge problem on our hands.
Yes, and some of the challenges that older adults face are being able to find affordable and accessible housing, having access to good health care, fighting loneliness, something we learned a little bit more about during the pandemic, and to be able to remain physically active, and being able to, as Pat said, getting around safely. These issues aren't unique to older adults, and these can make it difficult for people of all ages to live safely at home and stay connected in their community.
And you know, one of the great things about making a community livable is that within a community, what works for an older adult is also going to work for a young child. If you've got a curb cut, which initially was designed for people who are wheelchair bound or needed easier access to sidewalks, that also helps moms and dads with strollers, delivery people, and anybody who is moving anything along the sidewalks. It just makes it an easier access point. So it's really for people of all ages and abilities to be able to move through your neighborhoods and your streets safely. So there's options for people to make friends and to remain really active and be engaged in their lives.
Great. If you're listening to this and you've just tuned in and you want to learn a little more about AARP's Livable Communities work in general, there are so many resources available at aarp.org/livable. I'm sure the four of us could have and I think we have all, the four of us in the past had some great conversations about what a livable community looks like, and you know, how do we get there in our own communities and throughout the state. But I do want to shift gears just a little bit to get us to our main topic for the day, which is the AARP Connecticut Livable Communities Grant Program. So now that we've established a little bit, very high level, about what a livable community is, Barbara, could you tell us a little bit about this program in particular?
Sure. The Livable Communities Grant Programs is an opportunity for Connecticut-based nonprofits and for municipalities to apply for funding to complete a project that will make their community more livable for older adults and people of all ages. Grants can pay for small, short-term activities or larger permanent solutions. But the maximum grant amount is $5,000. And it really is amazing how that money can really help a community become livable.
Sometimes small projects can have a big impact. We're looking for creative ideas that address one of the following areas. Number one, affordable and accessible housing options for older adults. Two, delivery of services to help residents age 50 and over, age in the setting of their choice. Another, creating safe and enjoyable public spaces for all ages with a focus on the 50 plus. We're talking about bike and pedestrian infrastructure improvements, improving public parks, public art, safe street crossings, navigation, and anything else that you can think of. We also look into public transportation, fostering intergenerational and multicultural connection, financial security for low-income residents over 50, socialization and fostering community connection for older adults, education and awareness about elder LGBTQ population, and community accessibility for disabled residents.
Great. So to kind of put a bow on that and sum it all up, basically, if you have a great idea for how to improve your community and you can explain how this idea of yours is going to benefit residents over the age of 50, you should think about applying for this grant program. It probably fits into one of those areas, and we would love to review your application.
You know, this is our 5th year of offering the Livable Communities Grant. And I've been on the review panel for all of that time. And it's been fun to see all the different programs and ideas that have come across and how that has changed over time. But I have to tell you, my favorite program that got funded is this little cargo bike. It's a tricycle bike, and it is a library that goes out into the community. It's got hotspots so people can get Wi-Fi. It's got books. People can get their library cards. It goes out to all sorts of places within their community. It is my absolute favorite because it's describing, it does exactly what we're looking for. Livability is a concept. It's a philosophical concept. It's not part of any formal thing. It's really a way of approaching your community and approaching what gets done in your community and how you address the needs of your folks. They saw a need to be out into the community. They put together this proposal. We loved it. It was very, very unique, and we funded it. And I can't wait to see it. We're hoping to get there soon.
Yeah, as somebody who lives in a 2-cargo bike household, I was so excited to see Dun and Groton that public library book bike. That was a really, really exciting one.
And one of my favorites is in nearby town to me, New Britain, Connecticut. It was accessible gardens, raised gardens. As one who has had 2 knee replacements, I know getting down on the ground is a hassle. Not so much getting down, but getting back up afterwards. And, so having the gardens raised where you can actually sit there is accessible for everybody. You can garden with your grandchildren. You can garden with little kids. Plus, you know, any vegetables that might be grown are a boon to any food pantries. So it's you know, the gardens benefit the whole community, not just the elderly.
Yeah, and we've had projects really all throughout the state. I think we've funded projects in every county. You know, some are more targeted at fostering intergenerational connections. Some are more focused on improving the built environment in these communities. But after 5, you know, at the 5th year now, we've seen some really fun projects, and I think we're all on the review panel, and I think we're all really excited to see what comes this year. Barbara, you and I, for example, recently went to visit one completed project, which is a gazebo for residents of the Rocky Hill Housing Authority. And that visit was so fun. That's one of our newest projects, and I just loved it.
Well, absolutely. It was really beautiful to see. It's like this oasis in this housing facility that everyone can have access to. I also need to give a shout out to the staff. I just can't believe how dedicated they are to make sure the residents of their community are well taken care of. This program provided for a gazebo to be constructed. So because it's a gazebo and it's covered, it provides some shade. It has benches so groups of people can sit down and greet together. And it's level with the sidewalk. So there's no step to worry about or ramp. You can roll in with, everything from the wheelchair walker to a baby stroller and be able to access it. And one of the nicest things was the community was so excited. They also constructed a bench that residents painted. So it's, again, another stopping point. I can tell you, as someone who likes to walk, but also likes to rest as I'm going along, having benches, a place to stop is really essential. And I've seen other programs that we funded that do exactly that.
Yeah, I loved the gazebo and hearing from folks who were part of that community, what it meant to them, and having a gathering spot that was shaded, that was protected from the elements. Really it's making a difference. Again, an idea that doesn't sound like it changes the world, but it does change that community and it brings people together. And we hope to fund more projects like that this year. So I hope that if you're listening to this, we've done a good job of establishing that the Livable Communities Grant Program is a really good opportunity for both nonprofits and municipalities. Again, you have to be Connecticut based. We need the project to be located in Connecticut. So if you're listening to this and you are interested in applying for a grant, Pat, could you tell us a little bit about where folks can go to get more information?
Anyone who wants to apply can visit aarp.org/CT or send an email to ctlivable@aarp.org. That's Connecticut Livable at aarp.org. The application is pretty short and straightforward. Just make sure you actually respond to each question on the application because they're all worth points, and provide all of the details that we ask for.
And one of the very important things, as Anna was saying, is that it's any kind of a non-for-profit organization or a municipality. You have to be based in Connecticut because we're doing it here for our residents. And it has to, the organization has to be based in Connecticut and the project has to take place in Connecticut. So that's really important. Now, the to get everything in is Wednesday, September 7th, 2022. So kindly, please get to the website, take a look. It's really, and as Pat was saying, make sure you fill everything out. One of the things as a reviewer that's really important is getting a full picture of who is this organization and what is it that you're really trying to do. So spend some time thinking about that, and you may know really well what you're trying to achieve, but communicate it to us so we know really well what you're trying to achieve. And we can, like Pat says, each of those different elements are assigned points, and that's how we evaluate each one of the applications. So be thorough. Remember, it's Wednesday, September 7th. The application, the RFP, and all the details, once again, are there at aarp.org/CT, and look for information on the Connecticut Livable Communities Grant.
And again, if you have any questions, you can email us at ctlivable@aarp.org. And I concur with Tia, the more complete the application, the description, it's much easier as an evaluator to be able to understand what the project is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just little word of advice, having reviewed these for a few years now. If we ask the question, do not put not applicable as your response. Every response is applicable. So please, the more you can tailor your responses to the questions that we ask on that application, the better your score will be. And yeah, what did we miss? Did we miss anything? I think we covered all the key details here.
I'm just amazed at the creativity of the applicants, that there's just such a wide variety of ways to make a community livable. So it's really up to your imagination to be able to go forward with an application. And again, a little bit can go a long way for making a community livable.
And because you know your community where you live, you know what your community needs. Here in Bethel, our library said, you know what, people like to come on our lawn and do things, but we don't have a permanent table. And we have a lot of people in wheelchairs who come across our lawn and they're trying to pull up to something. So they applied and got a grant for these permanent fixture picnic tables that have a pull-up section for wheelchairs or moms with strollers, once again, or dads. Don't want to, moms or dads, anybody with a stroller, grandmas too, but, can pull up and use it. And that was important in our community, but it wasn't necessarily, the library saw that as being important, but, that may not work. Something else may be more important for another community. So you know what your community needs, what would make it more livable, more accessible, more enjoyable for people to experience where you live. So get with your non-for-profits, your municipality, get the form is not onerous to fill out. It's very explanatory, and submit it. You never know. You can't win if you don't play.
And it doesn't have to be, it could be, the project could be more than the $5,000, but this could be a partial grant towards that. It does not have to be, something under $5,000.
Yeah, I think the bottom line here is if you have a great idea, we want to help you make that idea into a reality. So thank you so much to everybody who tuned in today. And thanks so much to Barbara, Pat, and Tia for being part of today's conversation. And thanks to my colleague, Mike Humes, who's always behind the scenes, editing and producing all these episodes of Coffee and Tea. If you work for a nonprofit or a Connecticut municipality, please do think about applying for the 2022 Livable Communities Grant Program. Again, all that information is at aarp.org/CT, and look for the entry on Livable Communities Grant Program. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Thanks to our terrific AARP Connecticut volunteers, and we hope you will join us again in 2 more weeks for another episode of Coffee and Tea with AARP.